Welcome, welcome to Perspectives. Our show today is on the debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley in 1965. As you know, we've talked about race relations in this country are still an issue. Dialogue is slim to none, and the debate that James Baldwin and William F. Buckley had was talking about whether or not the American dream has been built on the backs of the African Americans who have unequal access, uh, unequal justice, and unequal everything as it relates to the American dream.
Right.
And so in the debate, um, Baldwin takes the position that the dream has been had by standing on the accomplishments of African Americans while not allowing them access to the very thing that they have given service and fought for. James Buckley, of course, takes the other position that, everybody has an equal stance. All they have to do is get out there and get the work done. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience that Mr. Baldwin is correct. Mr. Buckley, of course, took the position that he took because of the position that he's in. When you're born white and you're born male in America, you have a automatic advantage. In that debate, there was they had two college students that had to precede them when they spoke. The one that preceded Mr. Baldwin, he spoke of 1 in 9. You have one man in 9 who can do this, and one man in 9 who can do this, and then
Yes.
right, and then you have the black man who can't do any of that. He's shut out from all of the advantages that the white man and white woman, but particularly the white man, have that they're given from birth. All of the rights and privileges that they're given from birth, we have to fight for. We have to sometimes ultimately die for. What we continue to die for, what we continue to fight for. Those particular things are what I believe prove more or less that in addition to the 400 years of systematic oppression and the years of slavery where they used us as cattle and workhorses to elevate themselves and also gain status and wealth.
Yes.
And not just wealth, but generational wealth. The wealth that they've amassed has been able to create a whole country.
And create wealth for, as you said, generations that have followed.
Yes.
Who, I listened to Trump talk about his struggles as a young man getting started. Well, he struggled with the $1 million that his father gave him to get started.
Right.
So how somebody would see that as a struggle only comes out of having so much that $1 million doesn't really mean anything.
Right. And as far as Trump, his idea, like you said, of a struggle is to have $1 million.
Right.
And anybody who's ever struggled at all knows that you don't struggle with $1 million. That's give me $1 million and we'll see how much
and watch what we can do with that, right?
And watch what we can do with that. You and I alone, with the endeavors that we seek to undertake, could definitely use that $1 million and
create generational wealth for our families.
Exactly, and triple it or quadruple it. So it's a case of where, again, you have and it's not a matter of perspective, because there was also a portion of where James Baldwin was on the Dick Cavett show. Now, for the old heads like me and Dr. Eveylyn, that's a show that used to premiere back in the 50s and 60s. So
yes, before most of you were alive.
I'm familiar with it simply because I had a taste for things of vintage,
an intellectual level of thinking.
And so I dip back on those times where, and it was a very interesting show that day, because James was talking about, Mr. Baldwin was talking about pretty much the same thing, but Dick Cavett brought his professor on to argue the point. And in that clip, you see James Baldwin say, or you hear him say, you want me to believe in something that I've never had the advantage of seeing, something that you see every day. And the professor, the professor asks James Baldwin, well, you're a writer. Well, then how did you become that? How did you go through the muck and mire to become that? Forgetting that James Baldwin left the United States
and moved to France.
And
yes, he did.
And was on the streets of France for a short while to become that writer. He couldn't become that writer being in America, as he said, having to look over his shoulder with all the chaos that was around. It was even crazier than it was in the 60s.
Well, just think about 2021, where you can be a real estate broker taking a client to see a house, and the neighbors call the police, and the house is surrounded because they feel like you've broken into the home, even though you're doing a showing. Right. And so that's where we live today in 2021.
Right.
James Baldwin is a phenomenal author, and many of the books that he's written are as relevant today. One in particular that I love is Fire Next Time. And it starts out by saying, God gave Noah the rainbow sign, no more water, fire next time. And we've seen that occur. We've seen the riots and the fire where we are burning down communities, and unfortunately burning down our own communities because of the level of frustration that has bottled up so much anger that people, upon release, are destructive of the very things that they need for survival.
Exactly.
But because of so much anger, it turns into fire.
There's a whole lot of anger, and I would say that anger is justified and warranted. Let me touch on something real quick. There was a young lady,
and we've got limited time.
Right. There was a young lady who went viral about, our communities, and the fact that when something happens and we riot, that we're not actually burning our communities because we don't own anything in those communities.
Exactly. And that's the level of frustration.
That's the level of frustration, yes. And Mr. Buckley, as he took the stance of opposition, he also took jabs at Mr. Baldwin. Once and of course, Mr. Baldwin was unable to come back because he had already spoken. So it's a case of where you have a lengthy time to where we have to do twice as much for half as much. We have to,
and grateful if we get half. Usually it's a lot less than that.
And yes, and have to be grateful that we get half if we get that. If
Absolutely.
We get that. I was watching a movie last night with Andy Griffith and Johnny Cash. And it was something that took place here in Georgia, down in Coweta County. Andy Griffith plays the bad guy, strangely enough, and Johnny Cash. Both of them are sheriffs, but Andy Griffith is a dirty cop, where he does what he wants, and he runs his county, Meriwether County, with an iron fist. And there's an instance where Andy Griffith kills a white man, strangely, and when Johnny Cash comes after him, Andy Griffith enlists the help of two black men. I don't know if they were sharecroppers or what they were, but they were two workers down in Meriwether County, and he enlisted these men. He enlisted their help by threatening them, and one of the guys wanted to quit, and the other black man said, the second black man says to the first black man, Mr. Wallace killed that white man over $50 and a cow. He said, so do you still want to lay your burden down?
Right. Meaning that he would kill you for far less than that.
For far less than that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Just on the say that you want to quit. So if he'll kill a white man for little to nothing, he'll kill you for even less.
We would like to invite our audiences to like our page, to look at us on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel. This is Perspectives with Eveylyn and Kevin. And from time to time, we're going to do these little snippets and try to give you food for thought, ask you to consider delving deeper into the writers such as James Baldwin, and look at what he has written in the 60s, the 30s, the 40s, Langston Hughes, some of the things that these writers were talking about that we are still dealing with today. It's not new. It's not new. And so as we're closing out the show today, be encouraged. This is Perspectives with Eveylyn and Kevin. We are on every second and fourth Wednesday, live on Facebook. We want you to join us for the dialogue, for the conversation. And at some point, we're going to ask you to send us your questions and make suggestions as to topics that you would like to hear us talk about. When we talk about this great debate, there are videos on YouTube. And so we'd like for you to take a look at that. Open your bridge of knowledge. One of the things that I find is that not just our young people, but some of our older people, we don't know our history. We don't know where we come from or what we've gone through. We think everything is new. Everything is just happening. It's not. It is a continuation of struggle, but we're still here. And we have an opportunity to heal our communities. And it's up to us to do it. Nobody else is coming. There is no Lone Ranger on the white horse with the white face, with the white hat coming to save us. We have to save ourselves.
Right.
But in order to do that, we have to know what we're trying to save ourselves from.
Mm-hmm. There's a gentleman that I'm going to be struggling, I guess you could say, to either get on the show once we start having guests. His name is Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Okay.
Yes, I am. Very much so.
And he says poignantly that we are the only race who, as a stance, when we're taking a stance for ourselves, we're the only race that includes other races. You know, you have the Italians. If they take a stance, it's all about Italians. Or if you have the whites, they take a stance, it's all about the whites or the Asians or Indians. We are the only ones who include other people, and so we make it hard for anyone to focus on us because we simply and this is a part of our conditioning, as he stated, that it's a case of where we are and also being the African race being docile or becoming docile or made to be docile. We include everyone else and we minimize our own view. So we also want our viewers to take a perspective as it is, that when you have to focus on those matters of race, or any inequality, that you do it with a vigor and a laser focus, because sometimes you have to be selfish to be heard, and
Absolutely. I have
because
said many times that when we're so quick to say people of color, that excludes Black people.
right,
Because once you say people of color, it opens the door for people to disperse and to take the issues of everyone else into consideration. When the issue is what is happening to Black people, African Americans in this country,
specifically,
and when we get to the point where we are afraid to say Black people and to make the issue what it is, it's about Black and white issues that have not been talked about. And so no solution has come about. And it's not that we don't care about the issues of others, because I believe that over time, Black people have shown that we care about everybody's issues. Exactly. Because we're willing to support everybody. But who supports us? Who supports the issues of Black people? If you are offended when I say Black Lives Matter, you need to rethink your position. There is something wrong with your thinking if you find a problem in me saying that Black Lives Matter. I didn't say that nobody else's life matters. I simply said Black Lives Matter. Yet that seems to be so offensive to others when you say that. Because now we got to have Blue Lives Matter. No one ever said that what Black Lives Matter stands for is the exclusion of other people.
And Blue Lives Matter is not even a real thing. Blue Lives is about cops. Cops are all different,
absolutely.
Different persuasions. So
but that's why it came about, because there's always a war between Black people and policemen.
Right.
And why is that? It's because they so frequently shoot us down in the street or find ways of killing us, whether you are armed or whether you got a bag of Skittles. And so that is a problem.
And even at the end of the day, we have to remember why there's a police force in the first place. And that goes back to slavery, when they enlisted the white men to go out and wrangle back up all of the escaped slaves.
To get their workforce back, right?
Yes,
to get their workforce back.
Yes, the current police force was started because it was a force to wrangle us back into slavery and bondage. So we have to remember that anytime we speak about Blacks and cops, it's always a position to where you have to think of what you're doing and think of what's going on.
Absolutely.
But once again,
thank you for sharing this.
Yes.
This is a great show today, and we will probably talk more about it and more in depth. We'd like to close out with a video on James Baldwin where he's talking about Black love.
Is what you see in your mirror. What you try to do is isolate whatever it is you see in that other person, which is you. Everybody knows, for example, if you listen, every writer knows. If you listen to me, if I listen to you, no matter what I may be describing, I'm describing myself.
There's a prejudice that at one time was against homosexuals.
At one time?
Yeah, hold on. When it was a criminal offense, even. Then that's got removed.
The law.
And people started to appear to accept. Back, it comes again now because of AIDS.
It never went anywhere. It never went anywhere. People's attitudes don't change because the law changes. I know that. And the homosexual question is like it's like what we call the racial question. Nobody, no man and no woman, is precisely what they think they are. Love is where you find it. And you don't know where it will carry you. And it is a terrifying thing, love. It is the only human possibility, but it's terrifying. And a man can fall in love with a man, a woman can fall in love with a woman. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's not in the province of the law. There's nothing you do with the church. And if you lie about that, you lie about everything. And no one has a right to try to tell another human being whom he or she can or should love.
But when you wrote Giovanni's Room a long time ago, that was quite a brave book to bring out, wasn't it? It was about love, but it was about homosexual love, but it was about love. But you deliberately put in homosexual love, presumably.
Well, the boy is in the middle. It's not so much about it's not about homosexuality at all. It's about what happens to you if you can't love anybody. It doesn't make any difference whether you can't love a woman, can't love a man, if you can't love anybody. You're dangerous because you have no way of learning humility. No way of learning that other people suffer. And no way of learning how to use your suffering and theirs to get from one place to another. In short, you fail a human responsibility, which is to love each other.
Are you still in despair about the world?
I never have been in despair about the world. I'm enraged by it.
Enraged, all right.
But I don't think I'm in despair. I can't afford despair. I can't tell my nephew, my niece. You can't tell the children there's no hope.
I suppose I'm wondering whether we're more materialistic, more selfish.
I don't know more.
No.
I think that we're more panic-stricken. I think that I walk through these cities, the cities of the Western world, London, New York, and sometimes it resembles the most poverty-stricken cities of the East. There's been a breakdown, a betrayal of the social contract in Western life. And people are grabbing for things and holding on to what they think they can get and stepping all over their neighbors because they are panic-stricken.
What, comforting themselves with material things? Are
Yes,
you
but
saying
when people,
simple?
yes, when people do that, they are reacting to something is beginning to crack. People hoard all this because they don't have anything else, but they don't really believe in it, and they kill to get it. But that proves the moral bankruptcy, which translates itself into the actual bankruptcy of the world in which we live. We have yet to understand that if I am starving, you are in danger. When people think that my danger makes them safe, they're in trouble. It is clear to me, it's clear to many, that what we call the political vocabulary of this age cannot serve the needs of this age. That we will have to find a way to get beyond our crippling habits. This is not the 19th century. Queen Victoria is long, long dead, and Europe is no longer the center of the world.
Well, thank you for being the center of my world for a while
Thank
today.
you.
James Baldwin.
Thank you very much.
James Baldwin, who died on Monday. We showed that programme again instead of our Build interview with Sir Alec Guinness, which you will be able to see next Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday. In the meantime, good afternoon.